It actually is funny. That was truly was high stakes for me back then.
Well, I mean, that's why it's a funny joke. But what's up, guys? It's D22 says so Wayne Chiang of the Live Poker stream. This is Chris Brewer, which you guys have seen in the $1 million cash games and a couple high stakes Friday games. But it was really funny because I was like cleaning my YouTube videos and I saw one of my videos. I'm like, is that Chris Brewer? So, and then I just sent you a screenshot. I was like, and you were like, this was you. So
Yeah.
I guess we played like micro stakes on it's like 5-5, like whatever, 1,000 or 1,500
Like I
buy-in.
said, it was big stakes, man. It's all relative. It was micro for you back then. That was bigger stakes. That was probably bigger stakes relative for me then than I play now.
Well, as the audience and the community knows, like career change, which you have a lot of comments on the high stakes poker scene, so we're gonna get into that. But I want to throw you under the bus this hand. So it was folded to one of my best friends on the button. He raised, and I have pocket nines in the small blind, which you're obviously supposed to three bet under just about any circumstances. And then I looked at you. I'm like, oh, this motherfucking young Thundercat, bro. He's 100% gonna squeeze if I flat. so
Oh, it was a good
so
read.
I flatted, and then Lyman Nicole in the commentary was like, "What's Wayne doing?" It's like, "He's set mine is like such a fucking terrible play." And you wake up with Israeli Ron's Queen Deuce, and you squeeze. My buddy folds, and I just like induce a couple, like I think of just a flop bet off of you, but it was ace.
What a
The flop.
terrible hand by me. Like that's not even like it's funny. Like I was hoping you'd say I had like I don't know, like king five suited or like ace seven off, like something I could at least be like, yeah, like like I have a deuce in my hand. I have the little worst card in my hand. I'm like, oh, let's put some money in.
It was just funny because like
What a
I was like,
disaster
this
that is.
this young Thundercat's 100% gonna squeeze, and then you did, and then the flop was like A6-6, and then Lyman and Nicole are like, oh, Wayne just punted all his chips, he's gonna check fold this. I'm like, nope, just call it. And then
And then I just gave up.
you just gave up, yeah.
Man,
But
so like what a terrible way to play the hand. Like at least I'm gonna do it. Might as well just bail off, No,
um,
that was like how I played poker though, because I started playing like I was playing 1-2 at like a cold room up in Eugene. So I would just like so the game was very soft and like very loose. And then there was also the way the rake is set up in Oregon is you only pay on your buy-in. So like and it was capped at $500. So if you bought if you bought like $1,000 of chips, you only paid I think it was you paid a 5% vig on the first 500 and then the rest of it
okay.
was rake free.
Wow.
So it was a cool setup. It was like a way to play 1-2 that you could actually make money. But like I would just play completely hand. Like I would probably play like 40% VPIP. And like my entire thing was I was like, I'm just gonna keep seeing the flop and then I would just do a bunch of like I would bet one time and then just never bluff from that point on. But like my image was crazy. So I would just get paid off by like bottom pail.
Mm.
Like
I
that was
mean,
literally my entire strategy was never bluff after the flop, but just play as crazy as possible pre and flop.
look, we know how it is. It's like we adapt to the game conditions. It's not like you just like you memorize a strat and just like do the whole thing. Like even
Yeah.
it's I've heard good things about the games in Oregon actually. Like one of my buddies said, I guess one place you just pay entry, and
Yeah.
then you just like it's rake free.
Yeah. The state of Oregon in general, you're not allowed to collect a rake and be a cold room. So all the cold rooms operate as membership clubs. So they're like a golf club, like you have to join them. And then some of them do a door fee. So some of them like you have to pay like $5 every time you come in the door. Some of them do like you pay like a fee on the buy-in, which is like funny. Like, but like, and then there's other casinos or cold rooms that they'll do optional tips. But if you don't like optionally tip the rake, you'll like get banned.
Mm.
They have a whole setup though. Like all the dealers are private contractors, so no one's on like salary. It's like a very home game feel.
So what was funny is like I look and then I met you like I don't even know year maybe 2 years later and you're playing like the biggest stakes. I'm just like and then I don't know Sean Snyder and I are good friends. Actually, he and I like haven't played together in like I don't need like a really long time.
Has
But
anyone played together now?
well, I mean yeah, it's whatever. Like
I'm
like
just joking. It's
everybody
obviously been a while.
everybody splits off different games because like you
Yeah,
play No Limit, PLO. Based on your career, you're probably going to expand other games. But Sean
yeah,
has been playing a
yeah.
billion different games.
Sean's trying to take all my money and mix. It's cool of him. He just
And we'll
texts me
get
all the
to
time. He's like,
that.
every time there's a mix game, he acts like he acts all friendly. He's like, hey Chris, you want to play? Like there's these people that I'll He's like, by the way, we're gonna make sure there's a deuce to seven variant. He's like, because I know you're really bad at it. I'm like, thanks, Sean.
I mean, you know these poker things work. You just study. You like if you're proficient in one game, like you could transition to many different games. Well, okay,
Maybe.
I don't want to throw anybody on the bus. Okay, so what happened? You just like you go from your highest stakes, and then like in a year or two, you're just playing like nosebleed, no limit.
Yeah. I mean, I had a mix of things. One, I have like a I have like a degen streak in me for sure, but it's not like I don't have like a huge like I'm not gonna go play like blackjack or something, but like I just like playing poker for a lot of money. Like I always
I
have.
yeah, I could see.
Um, yeah, so like I was always doing I feel like I was just always shot taking. Like if I could possibly justify the shot, I would just do it. So like and like I
Some things
definitely
don't change.
no, and I definitely sat in games like I was losing in, and like I did a lot of like so like because I got stuck playing 1-2 for a long time just because I was in college and that was the only game available. So I was
So
had like
this is $1, $2, right?
yeah.
Because
So I
one
had like
two
a
can
big
mean a lot of different things.
no. So this at the time was $1, $2, and I had like a big bankroll when I left college, and then went which like was basically right when you played me. So I had like a big 1-2 bankroll, but I hadn't played much 5-5 on anything. And
Okay.
then I was just like super aggressive, but like I was doing like definitely dumb stuff. Like, I mean, I played some like I posted the story on Twitter like at the beginning of quarantine, but it was the first month or two after I was out of college, and like a absolute the great one of the greatest games I've ever been in happened at Ocean's 11. It was like a 10-25 game, and I had told the guy the game was going around. I'd made like some bet with him. I was like, hey, if you can get all every time you're all in 20 times, I'll give you $500. I was just like messing around because
Mhm.
he liked to just say all in. So this guy went all in. I kid you not, he went all in 44 times that day and he won 41 of them. He in a 5-10 game,
Wow.
he spun up 5K to 105K and it was 10-25-50 by the end. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. But like everyone stuck. Like you just can't beat this guy on this day. And I had like all my money that was at like Oceans in the box or whatever. So I think I might have had like 5 or 10K in a bank account. But basically I was stuck like 25 or 30K. And I just took out what I had left in my box. So I put on like 35K. So this was like literally my entire bankroll was on the table. And this hand happens where it goes, the I open, there's like 3 calls, and the guy calls in the big blind. The pot's like $800. It comes ace jack 2 with 2 spades, and the guy just says all in for 40,000. And
What do
I
you
called
have?
off.
Like
I had
ace
like
10 or
27.
something?
So like he had 7-5 of spades. He just had 7 high flush draw.
What did you have? Like ace 10 or
I had
something?
top 2. I had ace jack and ace jack 2.
Oh, ace jack. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
then that's
yeah.
not even a
No,
cliffhanger.
so I called and I ended up winning against the flush draw. But it's like, dude, I mean, I let literally my entire bankroll on the table, and I'm like 70-30 when the guy just open shot for like whatever. There was $800 in the pot, and I called off a 27K shove.
This is what dreams are made of, and then
So like, but yeah, it's like I don't know. I in between those cycles, I did a lot of up and down, but between running good, I like ran it up a little bit, taking shots, and then at some point, I realized because I just can't control myself when I'm going to play
mhm.
huge, I end up I end up getting back for like the big old games, which is basically the only way I can control my game for poker. Otherwise, I would just be taking my whole bankroll to every game.
Oh man. And good buddy of mine, good buddy of ours, Sean Snyder. I don't even remember the context, but like I guess he saw you on the bike, and we were just like chatting as I looked at you, and I talk about this on air all the time. Like
Yeah.
one thing is like when pros get older, when our energy drops off, but then you see these like young kids like you who are fucking studying their ass off and just, want to just like outplay everyone. I'm like, motherfuck these guys. So I see you, I'm just like, oh god. So I don't know how the topic came up, and he said Sean said he knew you.
Yeah.
And then he said he was like really close to just never talking to you ever again. So do you have any insight on what those things might be?
Man, it shows how clueless I am. 'Cause I mean, there was a period. All right, so there was a period where Sean, like, he had lost some, and he like went into like a hole in his house, and just no one saw him for like 3 or 4 months. And like, I didn't hear a text message from him. I think I actually texted him at one point. I was like, "Are you alive?" and I just,
That's
and then I
very
got a
nice of you.
no, and then I got like a response like 3 months later. I was like, "Oh yeah, I just blocked everyone's number." Like, it was just like, yeah, he was just. I think he was just over it with everything to do with Ocean's 11 and live poker and anyone associated with it. It was like, yeah,
Like I tell you guys, I don't miss it, man. Like I poker's part of my income, but it's just like I'm not relying on it because, dude, it's bad, man. When you get buried, huge. It's like I think
yeah,
you posted about this recently on Twitter too, right? Like you got
yeah,
to try to control yourself getting buried huge. Like at some point, because like you get older and you're just like, I can't keep complaining about this. So if I'm gonna complain about this, I need to just like not be a part of it.
yeah. It's such a weird thing because you're being insufferable. Like,
Yeah,
it's not like at least for me, like maybe some people like whine and they have no clue they're whining, but like
yeah,
I'm cognitively aware of how obnoxious it is, and like,
yeah,
and sadly for some of my friends, like I feel like I have a group of friends I would never complain to. Like that's our relationship. But then I have another group, like they complain to me, so I complain to them.
right, right.
And like it's not good. Like neither of us should do it. But that's like the dynamic. And I feel bad as I'm whining to them. And I even will say, like, sorry, you don't need to respond. I'm just trying to vent.
Right.
But like to me, like that's the whole point. Like people talk about like tilting. Like I feel like once you've played poker for like 3 to 4 years, it's not that hard not to tilt. You just like
I agree. Yeah.
you just look at your
Well,
hand and play normal.
I
I mean,
mean,
I'm saying tilt in terms of like you play a lot worse. Like being
right, right, right.
frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, being frustrated is hard. Like what's hard is just not becoming like a more miserable, unhappy person when you're losing a lot of money. And because like logically you know it's gonna happen. Like everyone who ever plays poker is gonna lose some amount of sum that's significant to them at some point.
Yeah.
And like the key is not to become awful while that's happening. And that's really hard. That's so much harder than like playing well while that's happening is like
Yeah.
kind of hard, but like, I think
It's
a lot of people can
doable.
keep playing well.
Yeah. I totally agree. And then just yeah, I mean, we'll get into that like
Yeah.
about the Sean thing. Like, I think because I know Sean well, so it can only be several things. One, you might have been berating some fun players. Another one might be
Seems unlike me.
you might have been taking too many edges that are it becomes socially awkward.
That seems
Three,
possible.
and you might be complaining when it seems like you're an entitled person back then.
So that's the most likely, to be honest. Yeah. Like that's the biggest like thing that I need to like if you know like had something you need to work on is like in your career or your personal life. Like for me, it's yeah, like being less entitled to winning. Which is like really hard, I think. And I think it's one of the hardest things in poker. 'Cause it's like you feel like you put effort into it and like it does have and like you take some pride or value in being good at this thing,
Yeah,
but like your results have nothing to do, like in a short term period, have nothing to do with how well you've been
good you are.
playing
Right.
or how good you are. And like when you're losing, I think it's easy to be like, well, I'm just the most unlucky. And it's like, okay, well, what about all those months you won
You
for?
were
Like,
lucky. Right.
yeah, it's
It's
like you
like
won't just you just went on this huge needle, you lose for a month, like, oh, cry me a river.
so one of the things is like, your network is probably young. So in your
Yeah,
20s and even your early 30s, it's probably like if you guys are whining to each other, it's fine. But then you
yeah.
get to the point where you got to be a responsible adult and then you're just like, well, I could keep doing this or I could, not whine. Because like
Well,
I've whined to certain people I really should not be whining to. So once you hit that echelon,
no,
you're like, okay.
I have one friend. I feel so. I mean, so he's like one of the main people I talk poker with, and I think he's phenomenal. Like, I'm not gonna say his name or anything, but like I think the guy is probably like top 5 player in the US. Like, talk to him a ton, but like has gone through like a run bad stretch that's like actually like spooky, like to the point of
Yeah.
being like I'm sure if you looked on a standard deviation chart, it'd be like the 3 to 4 standard deviations to the bad side, you know? And
Mhm.
like I'll still complain to him because like he's the most I talk over, and I feel so bad about it because like I know it's so outrageous for me to complain to him. Like
Yeah.
I'm definitely on like the positive side of running good, and I know that. But like when I'm upset, I'll be like, "Oh, this is so stupid," and like I just can feel him rolling his eyes, just like, you don't even get it, man."
There are so many players like much better than me, and I've seen their like
Yeah,
downswings that are just like way worse than I've ever seen. In fact, like I've been public about my worst live downswing, just like length of time wise. So it was my second year propping. And this is just like I'm dealt the losing hand like over and over. And I complained to JJ, Dan, Zach, and a bunch of other people. And then
yeah.
finally Dan Zach just like, wait, you gotta
I'm
fucking
sure Dan.
stop
I'm
this,
sure
dude.
Dan's gone through some crazy ones.
Oh yeah. This is just like I've gone through worse downswings online, but this is the worst live one, just numerically being dealt the losing hand.
Well, it's weird because they're different. They're very different types of pain. So like online, I feel like is more imminently frustrating when it's happening. Like when you're playing online and you're just losing so fast. You're
Yeah.
just like, wow, like how did I just lose 500 big blinds in 20 minutes? Like I logged on and was just instantly bailing. Like, okay, I guess I'm done. I suck. But like it's because it's shorter, like it doesn't like drain you
Sting. Yeah.
outside of it as much. The live downswing is just like it's just so much going in and losing 50 blinds, but doing it for
Slow motion.
9 months. I think I went on like I had like a 9-month break even stretch one time. I'm like, yeah, it like ruined me. Like it's so brutal.
Boo hoo. 9 months.
No,
Just kidding.
I'm just saying like mentally though, like it's the losing it. The live one is so much more taxing on like
Yeah.
your outside of poker life because just every day you just feel like it's just every day you just get beat down and you're so
Yeah.
miserable.
So, shout out to JJ and Dan Zach. I mean, there were other people that I, complained to too, but Dan, like, literally, like, one day he's like, Wayne, stop it. You sound like one of those bad players. And he's like, look, I know,
Yeah.
I did. And the thing is, like, when I'm complaining too, I'm almost like, I'm playing like a fraction, like, really small stakes compared to, like, you guys now. Like, I really need to STFU because I know, like, you get buried like 40,
Yeah, I mean,
60.
I always have mixed feelings about that because like I have some friends who play like low stakes and like they'll complain to me like about some poker stuff and like I'll think that in my head like I'll have that entitled thought like dude like you're talking to me about like some loss you had like I'm down 6x that in the last 2 weeks but then I feel like it's always like the step back and be like the thing that's most frustrating is just losing. It's not the money.
Right.
And the money's all relative. Like, if Gail or Andy loses 200K, it's a lot different than some guy who's grinding 510 at Comos losing 20K. Like, I can almost guarantee the 510 guy losing 20K, his
It's gonna
life is
hurt.
more significantly affected.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
So it's like I do feel like it's easy to have that thought, be like, oh, it's so little. But it's like if you take a step back, it's like, no, it's all relative.
Part of it is like my equation is so weird too because I have to support like entrepreneurship products. So like what it used to be like I lose like 40. I'm like, okay,
Your
whatever.
poker hobby has to support your job.
I mean, part of it for sure. So like I'm honestly I say this to like my coworkers and prop. I'm such a bitch now because like I used to lose like 40 or something and I'm like, okay, whatever. Now I lose like $1,500. I'm like, I can't stand it. I'm like, oh my god, I'm such
No,
a loser.
I think though there's I think logically it does make some sense in terms of like the older you get, the less time you have to like make money back. So losing money as you're older is like actually is worse, you know?
Yes.
You should obviously be more aggressive when you're younger, like any stock investment would tell you that. And then the other thing is I also think that like there's some research that just as people get older, like they seek less adrenaline, they want to take less risk, and like they become naturally more hesitant to risk outside of it being small. So it's like, yeah, I feel like that's gonna happen to everyone. Like everyone's gonna be so much more afraid of losing at 50 than they will at 20, than they will at 30.
Yeah,
You know?
that's definitely true. But like, I guess one of the misnomers that like people have fired shots like, well, not hard shots, but they just like mentioned that they think like me, Nicole, or whatever people who've been around, like it's just a choice. Like people put us to a tough decision, like in the poker world, where it's like, okay, whatever, like,
Yeah.
joking aside, that the hand in the beginning that I was, trolling you with, like, yeah, I have no hesitation. Like, I know exactly what I'm doing
Yeah.
from the beginning of the hand. So
Yeah.
I don't need a strong hand to, like, play poker, so to say. Yeah. So what do you? So you have some comments on the high stakes world today. I mentioned before the pod in a broadcast, but I know you don't listen to my stuff, which you rightfully should not be. But like towards the end, like I wasn't getting the text at Commerce. I would have to put my name on the board on everything. So when they opened the game, I'm like, oh, I'm up there
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Somewhere
I've
along the
seen
lines.
well, the funny one is I've seen people trying to start a game before, and they try to create a game that'll have a new structure so they can put it
Exactly.
up on the board to get around people like you. But like,
That was
it's such a mess.
that
Yeah.
was the trick that people did eventually, is because
Yeah.
it used to be,
So you
it
put
used,
yourself up to 10K no limit. Well, now they go start though. What's funny is, so I actually saw this at Commerce one time. So I saw someone was going to do a private game and people knew it was going to happen. So a bunch of the guys who play though regularly just put their names on all the boards, which
yeah.
is completely fail what they should do. And so I think they put themselves up to 10K. So the 5K is 51 and 10K is 1-2. Okay. So the people came in and they tried to start a 20K min buy-in, but they tried to make it 1-2 still because they didn't want to play 2-4, which was too big.
Hmm.
Um, and the floor just wouldn't let them. And then it ended up being this like whole scene. But it was so funny to watch. Like they were just like trying to make up rules to get around the board.
I mean, that's kind of the
Yeah.
tail end, and then I went broke, and we'll comment on that because some of the phenomenon that I think you had an issue with, or not issue, but you observations, is basically
Yeah.
very similar to what happened to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's just high stakes is so like I feel like there is still there's still poker to play. I think if you're willing to play 25-50 or below, you'll get a ton of action. You really won't have to do much. Like maybe if you get in a private game, it'll be better, but like you can find plenty to play. As you get above 25-50, and it starts at 25-50, but as you get above there, it's more and more, and it keeps moving more this way, where games are just like either very privatized and very predatory, and just all about being like the best game, all about making the most rake if it's some home game, but it's not about like trying to play poker and outplay each other. Like that's not the goal of high stakes poker at all. And then the other format is like the other way high stakes exists is just like super high variance styles where like edges are really small. So like the most commonly available public games right now for high stakes are like MTTs online. And like I don't know, if you look on like Poker Sales with Vig, the best player in the world is ranked at 1.15 with Vig. So that's saying that like the best player is making 12% or something. So it's like no one's crushing this format, but it's like you're gambling a bunch and there's a bunch of money in play.
There was I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but like on Friday games, like a specific player who's a pro would just like normally plays relatively traditionally, and then was raising much higher than the normal PFR, like size wise.
Yeah.
And Brian Arakaki, the director, and I think JJ and somebody else was asking me, like, what's he doing? I'm like, this is what happens in high stakes poker. When your time is limited, you got to try to make things happen.
Just pushing the action.
So basically I was like, look at the seating arrangement. This is like putting pressure where on the person that he needs to, take money from.
It's funny, even because quarantine's made me like play online a lot more. Even like the highest stakes cash games online, well, it's like obviously cash is like the lower variance format compared to tournaments, but even those, the way online cash is in general is like it's some reg open sitting like 6 tables, and really it actually isn't like it's not even necessarily the top dog. Like a bunch of those usually like something like there'll be like 8 to 10 regs who will just open sit and never get sat because like people just don't really want to battle.
Sure.
And then it will be like eventually someone sits who's like considered losing. Sometimes they're not even a fish. Sometimes it's just like a pro slightly worse.
Right, lesser
like
pro. Yeah.
Yeah, or it's like, or it is a fish. They'll sit. The game will fill up within 10 minutes, probably 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think 5's more
and
right.
then it will last for about 50 hands, maybe.
Sit out.
Yeah, and then everyone sits out, and you just repeat. Like playing cash online at really high stakes is just so soul sucking because it's that process. But also, you're seeing so few hands. It's actually still just so much luck. It's like so much of the high stakes world is just a pretty big luck contest, which is kind of interesting. Or it's about being in private games.
I mean, those specific ones that are like instant sit outs, it's just like I don't know if this still happens because obviously you have to balance your range and sometimes get a little out of line. Winning those out of line hands has such a big swing in results, like short term.
Well, and like the interesting thing is because you're playing so few hands, and a lot of times you're playing like 6 to 9 handed cash. So like I would say that like let's say like the best regular in the game and the worst regular, who are both still winning. Like if they played each other, the best guy would crush the worst guy.
Yeah.
But when you put them in like a 9-handed game that's just built around this fish for 50 hands, I bet you the difference in win rate is like negligible, which also is like a little depressing sometimes. You're like, well, it doesn't even matter. All you have to do is be good enough to beat this one bad player for 50 hands.
9-handed, it's probably obviously the more short-handed it gets,
the more the being better. But like if you're talking like 9-handed, where like the majority of the skill is playing pre-flop well, and like you're just trying to get some fish who's playing like 40% of hands or 40% hands or something. Like it's like it doesn't really matter. So it's like it's such a the high stakes online cash is a little gross feeling. It's not a meritocracy at all.
Oh yeah. This is like, some of the inside scoop that I try to let people know, that when they watch Live at the Bike Fridays, they think it's like this holy grail. I'm like, no. This is like a cartoon version. Even in LA, like high stakes poker, like the 7-card stud is dead. I used to, constant that one with the 1 or 200, but it's like split between stud, PLO, no limit hold'em, mixed games. I don't know if there's anything else that gets in the action. Is that pretty much like the 4 categories now in defunct fifth?
Yeah, PLO, no limit, mix. That's like the entire high stakes action.
They were, I mean, like I would actually say in LA, limit hold'em slightly poppier than no limit when it comes to just most stakes. Like in the peak hours, no limit is the highest.
Yeah, it's probably true. If I don't know, so I don't know enough about limit to compare like what's equivalent stakes, but before quarantine, Carmel's pretty reliably. And I'm just for people that aren't in LA, I feel like Carmel's is like the it's like the S&P 500 of like poker rooms or something. It's like you can kind of go off the environment there, and that'll be like the general environment everywhere. But it'll usually be like a 10-20 or a 20-40 that'd be running, maybe 1 or 2 on the list, and then for the limit games, it seems like there was usually like a 100-200 limit that would go like 4 or 5 times a week probably, and then it was like very consistently a 60-120 or whatever.
Oh,
like
and then PLO is less consistent. There's
PLO is definitely the most inconsistent,
but it plays the biggest when it goes, right? Probably.
Yeah, so the PLO plays like minimum 25-51 anytime it goes in LA. And PLO is funny because I don't know, live PLO is just such a weird animal of its own. It's like a lot of times it'll just be like this random big game that spots. No one has any clue how to play. Like literally no one knows how to play. Like it's the most is like everyone's just on the table like, well, this game is gonna be good because the fish wants to play. We're all just gonna like try to get. We're all just like guessing and like it's like, yeah, like I hope I get lucky.
I mean, that's basically what happened when I went broke. Is it's like I didn't understand the variance of PLO, but you're just dealt winners or losers at a high
Oh
percentage
yeah,
rate on both
no, it's sick.
sides.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of it with PLO, and
I'm sure you know way more than me, but
no, both sides of it. I mean, it's very sick. Like, have you ever like played around with like the variance calculators on Prime Dope or whatever the site is?
no, but I like somebody like you or Dan Zach or other people just tell
Yeah.
me that it's 1.8 times no limit. I don't know anything. I'm just reciting
So
numbers.
yeah, but it's pretty sick because like even no limit, like people don't understand how swingy it can be.
Hmm.
But like there'll be stuff like you can have like obviously these are the two extreme ends. But like if you win like a PLO and like let's say you gave someone, I don't know, like a 10 big blind win rate. So like they're an amazing player, they're
Right.
like the best player in the game. And whatever, you put the variance in and you had them play like 50 to 100,000 hands, which is like a ton of hands.
Yeah.
You would legitimately have a difference of like there would be a sample where the guy won like 22 bigs per 100 in that stretch, and there would be a sample where the guy lost like negative 15, like got molded. And like when you're
Yeah.
talking about that with like high stakes, it really is
Oh, dude.
crazy how swingy these stakes are and how much more you can win or lose than
Yeah.
people like expect. And like, yeah, how much like the exact same player could be viewed completely different by the
Oh,
population
yeah.
based on how they've been running.
Right. No, it's crazy, and it's just
Yeah.
like I had Blake you in the podcast, and I've known him for like 10 plus years.
Yeah, Blake's been around forever, so like he'll I'm sure he'll talk about this stuff. It's how much luck there is. And that's not to say like poker is a high skill game, and if you're good at poker, you're going to win big blinds. The thing that's tough is sometimes big blinds doesn't equate to money if you're
Yeah.
playing a bunch of alien stakes. Like if you play anything from 10-20 to 200, 400, what winning in the biggest game is going to be what matters.
Yeah, but part of it is like I said this too, and you're starting to hint to this on Twitter. It's the lifestyle that's like the toughest part. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, like I admit I'm like behind the curve, especially for no late Holdem. But I get a glimpse at you guys, so I kind of know what's going on. And everyone's like, "Yeah, have you studied? You could blah blah blah." I'm like, dude, I don't even want to go back. But the hardest part of the lifestyle or the hardest part of poker, a professional poker player, is the lifestyle. Like just like you said for Sean Snyder, like him hibernating for 3 months is
Yeah.
just like, sorry,
Well, and
Sean,
like
but
one thing I've always found difficult with poker is this balance of like playing a strategy game that you enjoy and playing a or being in a business that's a lot of hustling, right? So like there's like two sides of poker. There's one which is like the skill format of the game, which is like how good and like I feel like that was like pre Black Friday. Poker really was like if you could play well, you just got to keep winning and keep moving up
right,
stakes.
yeah,
Since then, it's not like that as much. So like there's that side of it, and then there's the other side, which is like you got to know, be friends or be social, be in the right spot to play in the right games. And I think that can actually be like very draining sometimes. Like
it is,
balancing
yeah,
this thing of like I never want to be fake with anyone. Like I don't want to be like, oh, you have a good game, let's be best friends. Like I hate
yeah,
that. But on the same side, it's like you have to have some level of like networking skills. And I think that can be draining, like not losing yourself to I definitely know some people that I feel like they've become so obsessed with getting into like the best game or the best situation, they've like lost their soul. But like they just would do anything to be in the right game or like in the right spot. And it's like you can't even be friends with them anymore because they're always on the hustle. So it's like you don't want to be that, but you don't want to be the antisocial. You don't want to be the dude locked out of every game either. So
which like the more and more I see, it's just like so much worse now than ever. And
yeah.
I've seen like high stakes people like, oh, we didn't mention the other high stakes scene, which is the Gardens mixed game, which it's so
Mhm.
competitive getting those seats. But
Yeah.
just like people screaming at each other, and all high stakes
Yeah.
like this. But I think no
Yeah,
limit hold'em is the worst. Like I've seen people who
for sure.
known each
So
other. Yeah, go ahead.
it makes sense though, because in no limit is where your edges are the biggest and it's the
Yes.
most stressful game. So
Yes.
like PLO, obviously you can just end up playing a really big pot out of nowhere if
Yep.
you're really deep. But like if you get it in, um, assuming you're not like doing something insane, most of the time you're gonna find a way. Like you're gonna have 25 to 30% still. So like, yeah, if you might have made a mistake, but you'll still have a chance. The thing with no limit is like when you're playing really deep in no limit, when you make a mistake, a lot of times you have 0 to 10% equity.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're playing against someone better than you or playing in a spot bad for you, you can get crushed so massively that's like people really scale to that and they don't want to lose a bunch of money. So they do what they can to protect themselves and get in good spots. And I think it's rational and I completely get it. Like it's frustrating sometimes when it doesn't work in your favor, but like it almost feels it's like what it almost feels like it's the inevitable end game of high stakes poker is you're playing for Hold'em, is you're playing for too much money with edges that are too big to have
Yeah.
games just be completely available to everybody. Which is like sad. Like obviously I would like that, but
I mean, the landscape really changed. So after Black Friday, the cake network was still available. So I think I don't know. I got an account there, only had like 1 or 2K, and then I just like ran it up, and I was playing 10-20 eventually. And then we all went to Commerce, and then we see all these faces, and the way everybody plays, so like obviously online player. So like, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? And we all have like wads of cash. It's just like really funny.
yeah, I have a friend who I have a friend he was playing live like a little before Black Friday in San Diego. And there was a lot of good online guys who were just living in San Diego because they were wealthy and they wanted to live in like a nice place.
Yeah.
But a lot of them got they lost a bunch of money when Full Tilt didn't pay them out or whatever, and they needed to play live poker because they needed to make money. So
Yeah.
like my friend basically got to become like infinitely rich just because he had been playing like 10-20 cash, so he was cash rich and could stake people because they literally didn't have cash. It wasn't that they didn't have money, but they needed the cash, so they had to get
Right.
staked by somebody.
Right.
It was kind of like a weird situation where it was like if you were one of the people that like there was a bunch of it was just like a weird time, you know.
Yeah, no, I like you said, a lot of the best players in the world are at least US are in San Diego. So
Yeah,
you
and
want to
those
comment on that?
San no San Diego San Diego has like they're like those some great games happen in San Diego, but yeah, those some tough pros. Like I said, like when I was coming up and like taking shots and stuff, I promise I played in lineups I was losing heaps in. And I don't know if that would have been too possible in other locations. Like I think pretty much anywhere else I would have played, I would have been losing less than some of the short-handed lineups I played in.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie, we all been there. So
Yeah, but I have too much ego to ever quit. I'm just like, all right, let's battle. I'm gonna figure it out.
I mean, like what dude, everybody's been there and we know how it is. You can't get better until you play against people who are better, but at some threshold you'd be like, okay, I gotta kind of be responsible in
Yeah,
life.
I think Gaelic made some tweet a while ago. That was something like reflect. He was like reflecting back on like when I used to stay up to like for like 48 hours just battling the best heads up online with no clue what I was doing, but just trying to figure it out. And he's like, and just like winning and losing my net worth over and over again.
Five
And then
five
like he
Xer,
said, like,
yeah.
yeah, he said like how it like made him good.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I think there is something to that, but like it's not the way I'd recommend loaning poker to anyone.
It was also a different era back then because money
Yeah.
was flow. I'm sure you heard this a million times. So like money flowed a lot easier. It was a lot easier to recover. I can't even like I'm very conservative by nature. So whenever I deposit online, it's like usually like 1K or 2K, and I just like
Yeah.
literally just run it up because I don't want to be like depositing a larger amount. And it doesn't take long to run up like small to mid, mid to high. Like you could literally do it in like 2 to 3 weeks.
I remember, you know who Lee Salem is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I was talking to Lee Salem, and he has incredible stories. For anyone who ever plays with him, just let him tell you stories about the old gambling world. Like he was such a legend. Um, But like, yeah, I know him saying, he's just like, yeah, you could just win and lose. He's like, you could just win back $1 million. Like, it was just a thing. He's like, if you were just like, he's like, you could just win $1 million. And then like people said, like, if you were just like a good pro, you just won $1 million, which like no one does anymore. Like, no, like,
I was never
I
in
remember
that
Lee telling me,
environment.
Lee's told me some story where it's like he went to Vegas. I don't know. He might have had like 200,000 or something. Sat in Bobby's room, got beat, had like 20,000 left. Went to the blackjack table, spun up to like 1.2 million at the blackjack table. Goes back, sits in like the smaller Bobby's room game, wins another like 300, and then sits in the biggest game, and then loses like 800. And this is all within like a span of a weekend. And he quits like up 400K on the weekend, but he's literally getting swung like $1 million in like 3 days.
Shout out to Lee Salem.
No, like, it's so sick.
No,
like, I talking about it.
I played with him, and I've heard stories about him. We'll let him tell the stories.
No, I mean, I played PLO against him one time. It was like, wasn't anything too big, but we were playing like heads up. And I know this really specifically. He potted the river in some spot, and he'd been like playing really aggressively. And I had like 7 high flush. So I just like snap called, like we're playing heads up. Like I was very happy. And he's like, good call. And he like flips over his hand. And
It's
the
like
dealer
8
looks at
high
it,
flush.
the dealer just looks at it and goes, queen high flush. Like, he had a really good hand. It was so, and then I'm just like, Lee, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I was like, I know you didn't mean to.
He's a nice guy. He would never.
No, there was zero intent to slow roll, but it was so funny because it was like one of the most brutal slow rolls I had because he was positive he lost too.
That's happened to me several times, and it just sucks because especially when it's not intentional, you trust the guy to never slow roll, so you're just like, oh, thank goodness, and they're like, oh, actually, my bad. You're like, whoa.
Well, it's never going to happen in like Holdem. Like that's only going to happen. Well,
it actually does happen in Holdem. It
no,
does.
So I saw Andy. Andy came down to play at Ocean's 11, and some hand happens. The board's like King 3-3. Andy bets and gets check raised by the guy. The turns are 7. I think it was Queen 3-3. Turns are 7. Guy bets pretty big. Andy calls. River's a 7, so it's Queen 3-3 7-7. And the guy rips like all in for close to par, and Andy just snap calls, and the guy's like, "You got it," and Andy shows 5-3. So Andy flopped 3 of a kind, and River the full house. Obviously, he would just always call down, and the guy's like, and like looks at his hand and goes, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." He just has King 7 off. And to Andy's credit, Andy just handled it like a champ and was like,
dude,
nice hand, man.
Like, Andy's good.
Nice hand. But like, I just started laughing. Like I had zero control. Like I wasn't like a good sport, but I was like, I just laughed because like the guy has no clue he has a 7 and just runs out 7-7. And for what's worth, the guy was very apologetic. It's like, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I did not. I was like, I was just bluffing. I was just bluffing. I just didn't care what I had.
Yeah. I don't want to reveal too much about the psyche of that, but it's like people obviously intentionally do that stuff. And
oh yeah. No, it was just so funny though. Like it was one of the most epic unintentional slow rolls I've ever seen. Because also like a 3 was such the nuts. Like the way the hand played, it was like there was zero chance a 3 could ever lose. So it was like Andy couldn't have called fast enough. It was really funny.
So are you at the ACR GG poker scene now, or?
Yeah, so I've been playing on both. Yeah,
what's it look like?
Yeah, no, it's been swingy. There was like right when quarantine started, ACL had a bunch of massive games going. And I ran good in those spots, which was nice. And then I've like binked a few tournaments. Like I had a nice heater. But no, but like since then, ACL has been like kind of getting rid of some of the high stakes action. So I've been playing on there less and playing on GG. Yeah, and I mean GG's the way they set it up is so swingy. So like the tournaments the late reg goes until like 10 big blinds from starting stack. But you get some spots. Like I ran something in ICMI as well. I was just curious about this. But like you'll occasionally get spots where you're buying in at the end of late registration, your stack's automatically worth more than you're buying in for. So like
Okay.
if you're buying in for 5K, the ICM of your stack buying in is like 5250. So
Okay.
like there'll just be like a few spots. Like I've run a few of these and they come up. But what happens is everyone just buys in. Like you'll get these things where you'll just have like 10 people buy in right at the end of late reg for 10 bigs.
Yeah.
And it just can create like it just creates like such a high variance structure because like, some bunch of people just all in for 10 bigs.
Yeah.
And it's like you're playing for a bunch of money. Like it's wild to look at these things. Sometimes it'll be like some 5 or 10K, and you'll just see someone has like 6 bullets. It's like,
So I don't know. I've never studied tournaments. So if
yeah.
you have like ICM opportunities like that, would you just lean towards those things all the time, or would you actually want to?
I mean, I think it depends how rich you are. Kind of like, so like it's profitable to buy in that type of spot, but like it's not like a profitability that's like going to be a
That
nice smooth sale. It's going to be like there's going to be a few times that you're going to go like win the tournament. So like the way I think like tournament results in general skew is like if you have some EV, right? I don't know, like let's say you have like a 5% ROI, so you have an EV that's going to end up being like 100K with that after everything you play. I think the way the results will go is most of the time you're going to lose small to break even-ish.
yeah.
A few times you're going to lose a bunch, and then there's going to be like a very few times you're just going to be like Justin Bonema and win like a million. But like that's the way. Like it's like this really weird distribution where like a bunch of your EV comes on the tail end where you ran super hot.
Right.
So like your majority of your results are distributed in like not making a bunch of money. So it's like if you're gonna play tournaments, like especially if you're gonna buy into this like super small ICM thing, it's like you need to really make sure you have the role to play it because most
Have
of the
the
time you're just gonna lose
have the what?
the bankroll to play it.
Oh, you're right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like because most of the time you're just gonna lose, and it doesn't matter if you're the best player in the tournament, you're gonna lose most of the time.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, and you just so like the 10 big blind buy-in is it's extra swingy. It's taking that to an extreme.
Hey, man. Like nowadays, this is another difference between like being younger and being older. Is just like I don't have to play the biggest games, but I need to make sure I'm profitable in the
Yeah.
games that I'm playing in. So something like I would never used to be a short stack player, but I sometimes when I do it, when I prop is because I'm gonna get picked up in 2 orbits anyway, so I just don't even want to bother.
Well,
But like
sure.
there are times like online where I started quarantine, I'm like I'm just gonna short stack because I want to make sure I'm plus EV first.
Well,
Whereas like
I have the unpopular take that I think the most fun cash games would be something with an ante that you played between 30 to 100 blinds and you couldn't go deeper. I think one, it'd be way more fun. You'd have a lot of action. And two, I think so bad players can really mess up really deep. But I think when people start to become reasonable at poker, there's a lot more skill between like 30 to 100 than there is at like 300 plus. Because like the thing that happens, like just because you're talking about buying in short, like people
yeah,
people like crap on buying in short, but like when people are like, oh, like the best players play 500 big blinds deep. If you run like any spot 500 big blinds deep, like literally, so the solution is like by the river, like you should have some range. It's like going all in with the nuts, if like and like bluffing some, and then playing everything else like kind of scale. It's like super passive and scale most of the time, and then occasionally you just make a really giant pot. It's really boring poker.
that I don't know. Like yeah, I mean
I
I
guess
don't
I'm
know
just
the
saying, it's like how am I trying to explain this? It's just that really deep leads to a really nitty game,
yeah.
and
In this
I think
era.
people think of it as like, oh, these sick, loose, aggressive players playing super deep, but it's actually like you can do much more of that. Like you can play much looser and have much more fun between like 50 to 100 than when if you're sitting 600 big blinds deep. You kind of just have to have the nuts.
I don't remember what the min buy-ins were back in the day, but I would always buy in 100 bigs online, and it just whatever. It was so studied, and there's so much experience. But there is a big difference between deep online and deep live. Like I
Yeah,
feel like more action happens like
Deep
live.
live, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, and some of that is like so much. I feel like the value of playing really deep live is people making massive mistakes. Be it like I've seen really good pros. I've seen everyone make huge mistakes live, and part of it is
Sure.
live. It's really stressful. Like the money feels so much more real live. So like those becomes like a much bigger like psychological effect. I gotta 1 sec. Charger. Gotta put it in my laptop.
So yeah,
No, but there's like this big psychological effect when you're playing live that makes like playing deep have this like extra dynamic. And online, I think it's much more one, like how deep you all feel so much different online. Like 200 big blinds feels so deep online.
hmm,
But
I
like 200 big blinds live just feels like
like yeah.
it feels like you're playing like 70 bigs. You're like, all right, like let's get this in.
Part of, and I don't know if this is universal, because like online it was like 100 big blind cap, and some certain things are like very robotic, and when you double up or get stacked, it's just like not really a thing. But like live, it just it seems, I don't, for me it has so much more impact, like psychologically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it has a ton of impact on both psychologically and like the actual strategy. But
Yeah.
no, for sure. Like, I feel like online people are like shot taking a lot less, and a lot less often you're playing for amounts of money that like are really uncomfortable for you to play with. But live, you'll get stuff like someone like I think you see this all the time in like a good high stakes game. Like you'll have some 51 or 1-2 game that stalls. Some kid buys in for 10 to 20K and doubles, and now he has 20 to 40K, and he does not want to be all in. Like the
Right.
last thing he ever wants to do is get all in. Because like that money's so important to him. And like that doesn't really happen online. So like you
Oh
get
no.
like I feel like you do get like some weird dynamics that develop with those spots.
Online, I think a lot of the online players, they just accept, or like we just accept that this can go in or not. But then
Yeah.
live,
Well,
it just like,
and I think people are just way more within their bankroll online. I think
yeah.
live it's so much like I also think being a live, like if you're gonna be a live poker pro, I kind of think you have to shot take. Like I don't know anyone who's at the I mean, okay, it depends what you want. So like if you don't have to shot take if you just want to like responsibly make money and have like a solid job. But if you want to make it to like the highest stakes and make the most money, I promise everyone who made it has some story of playing some giant live game that they just kind of had to play because the game was so good.
Yeah. I mean, Jesse Martin had a podcast on it. Jesse Martin, super goat, been playing with him for ages, and he's been one of the most responsible people in poker, and he's like, not even that big of a known, but in the hardcore community, he's just like, I don't know what to say. And he's shot taken like many
Yeah.
times, and he's said he's run good in a lot of those situations in which if it goes wrong.
Yeah. But I kind of feel like it's like live, you just sometimes get some spots where you're just gonna like someone wants to play really big and wants to play really loose, and like you should sit in the game. And however you have to get yourself a seat in the game, like if you have to text a friend and sell some piece, sit in the game. I, this is a slight tangent, but one thing I've always disliked is when some good games going. So like I mean, people see this on the bike or something. Like, we'll have some game and we're going to put the straddle on, right? And it's fine if someone who's playing for fun doesn't want to do it. It's completely fine. That's reasonable. But like, if some pro who's like in the game and is winning is like, oh, well, I don't want to play big ol'.
Oh,
I'm like, dude, text your friend, sell 50% and play the exact same stakes. Like, there's so many solutions to not being a nit.
whew. Shots fired.
But like, no, I've seen people like literally break games because like they won't do that, and it's like, dude, you cost yourself and you cost everyone else. Like, and maybe the guy doesn't play again. Like, just suck it up or
Is
figure out some way. Like, I promise, if the game's good and you're a pro, like you'll find someone who, even if they don't think you'll win, he might just gamble. I mean, I've been texted before by some people and like, hey, do you want a piece of this? I'm like, sure. like,
dude.
like
Brian Kim's a sicko. Like, there was some situation came up, and he was like, I was there overnight at property, and then he told me about the situation.
He's a
He's
San
like,
Diego
huh?
guy. BK, San Diego guy.
Oh, he is? I knew. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
San
yeah,
Diego
yeah.
Orchards.
But like, he just like, there was a situation that came up, and he said, "Dude, I'll take whatever percentage you're willing to sell." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not playing. I'm not playing. Like, I'm not the person I used to
He's
be."
like,
And he's
sit
like,
in the game. He's like, just do it.
"Yeah." He was
Yeah.
just like, "I will take any percentage." I'm just like, "Oh, come on, dude. Like, I'm not doing this."
I've been in that spot. I've been in that spot both sides of it, where someone's like, dude, you have to play. And I'm like, I don't want to. And they're like, literally any percent you want.
Yeah.
And I've been on the other side of it where I'm like, someone doesn't want to play, but they can get a seat and I can't. And I'm like, dude, just play. Like, it's insane. Like, don't pass this up. Just find a way in the game.
There are, like, you guys know this. My life is different now. So it's like, there can be insane spots, but I got to show up the next day to work, or I have to work on stuff for Live with the Bike and, one of my other companies. So I can't, like, there have been insane spots. I'm like, dude, I just can't. Like, I'm an adult now. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
funny, even like I'm still young and stuff, but even like now compared to like 3 years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, like I would just play some, like even if the game wasn't great, I just have some like
oof.
18-hour session or something, like I would just sit there and play through the night. And like now I'm so much more like when live poker was going still before Corona and stuff, I was so much more like I would go maybe play at like maybe go start the game in the morning if it was starting at 11. I played at like 7 o'clock and I'd just go home. Like it didn't really matter. I would just be like, I just can't play any longer.
And like No Limit Hold'em's like the most intense form, and I always comment and compliment like Garrett and Andy for being purists, because a lot of people just branched out, and we have choices. Huh?
It is amazing just being a purist.
Yeah,
tough.
and like yeah, takes time to study though. So that comes to the thing where like in all previous generations and eras, if somebody wants to go pro, I would usually have like a guideline or a playbook. But in this era, I don't even know what to tell people.
You should still become good at No Limit. That has to be the thing.
I agree, but like, that's the start. Like, and
people like I feel like there's this constant thing like, oh, poker's dead or something, or like poker's so tough, like like no one, you can't just go win anymore or whatever. But like I feel like it's so relative to the stakes, because like, so I'm sure that 5-5 is a lot harder than it was 10 years ago. I completely believe that. That said, it's
still win.
Like you in live poker, 10-20 and under is incredibly beatable. And like learning to play Holdem and having those games, like I would bet there's a lot of guys out there who are just solid. They don't have anything special, but they just kind of like play reasonably, and they'll probably making 100K to 150 a year playing 5, 10, and 10, 20. Like I still think that avenue is super open, but like getting to the highest stakes, if you want to get above that, I think is kind of now just going to take a lot of luck, and you're also going to have to be good, or like you're going to have good networking skills. Like that'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Or like if you get really good at PLO, like if you can get great at PLO, there's a ton of money to be made. But the problem is, you're gonna have to already have a lot of money to start with.
Yeah.
So like you kind of have. I feel like you got it. I feel like you have to start just learn No Limit, become good at No Limit, get to the point that like you can sit in any 10-20 game or blow and live and know you're gonna be winning, even if it's small. And then from that point on, you can look into like other avenues of poker, but I just feel like you still have to start with that.
That's fair, I guess. Like I don't like Lyman and Dan Zach had recommended a JJ branch into Limit Hold'em. I've said that
but JJ's at the point like JJ wins at No Limit, so it's like he can go branch and learn other things.
Yeah,
it's like he already has something established.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, I get them. So first be established in No Limit, which I said that as well.
If you can't beat No Limit yet, like if that you haven't gotten to that point, like learning other games, you just don't fundamentally understand poker enough at that point that you won't be good at other games either. Because like No Limit is the easiest to learn. without a doubt.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's the most like the data's you can see the data. Like you can't see a hand chart for any other format of poker.
That's not true. I mean, limit hold'em's pretty. There's
Well, I'm
not as
saying,
much
well,
data.
hold on. No, but still, it's still Holdem. I'm saying like you can't go
Oh,
play like
right, yeah,
Omaha. You're not gonna go play Omaha and see a hand chart for it. It's gonna
right.
be much like you're gonna have to understand why
The
the hands are good or bad
right.
significantly more in Omaha than you will in Holdem. So like you should learn Holdem to start.
So that I mean, that's one of the things because like obviously a lot of training sites have these like charts, and man, the old charts for non-hold'em games, I'm like, WTF is this? This is like complete garbage. And like some people
What's
ask
up?
me stuff about pot limit.
I saw something. Yeah, there was something I saw the other day. It was like a old hand chart that I used to use.
For what game?
It was for tournaments. It was like back in the day. Like I had just
Okay,
looked at like I not that I was like ever a tournament player, but it was just something I'd had on my computer. It was
sure,
like
yeah.
it was from like 5 years ago. But it was just very wrong, which I thought was kind of funny.
Can you give an
Uh
example? Like one hand
so
range?
like it was too tight in a lot of spots. It wasn't playing aggressive enough for the ante. And then the other thing, it was not valuing high cards enough. So like just doing stuff like folding like king jack off or king 10 off or like king 7 suited in spots where like definitely want to play those hands. But then like I was valuing like just like low random suitedness. I was valuing suitedness and like connection too much,
In tournaments,
especially
okay.
especially like if we're talking like I'm 40 big blinds deep. Like I don't think there's no chance that like 6-5 suited from under the gun makes as much as like king jack off. But
No.
I was convinced that 6-5 suited was a better hand.
I'm not gonna agree with that. But like we had a discussion like I think a couple months ago or something because I was looking at the contemporary pre-flop charts and how they would differ. Like basically
Yeah.
these things are ever evolving, but they always have a bias to how the field is playing during that era.
Well, yeah. Oh, for sure. I was talking to one of my friends who was he was like a top tournament player in like 2011. He's still good, but he was just talking about like playing poker, and he was like, yeah, he's like poker for me. He's like has always been finding the next trick that works. So like
Yeah.
he talked about it used to be like considered that if you min raised with 20 blinds or less, you couldn't fold to a shove. You had to call. So he just started min raise. He just started min raising off like 15 blinds, and everyone would fold to him because they thought he had a really good hand. So
Right.
he was just
Yeah.
min raising like crazy, like 20 blinds below, because everyone just kept folding because like, oh well, he has to have it,
Yeah. I don't
which
wanna
obviously was a good, but it was obviously a good strategy, even though it wasn't close to GTO or something. But it was a great strategy.
that's the thing about the small and mid stakes is like there's so many exploitative things that you could do to like back when I was in San Diego when I first started, I was playing low stakes. I had a really high win rate and it had because I was just exploiting the field. It had nothing
Yeah,
to do with like, following some
well, that's what I mean, that's what most at its heart, that's what poker is, and like at its heart, that's even what like GTO is. Like people would talk about like GTO as if it's like this
Bible.
complete like complete set in stone Bible. But like if you tweak how someone else plays, the response becomes really different. So like the really obvious example to me is just like let's just say you saw a flop and someone just shoves all in, right? Like whatever. They like obviously you would make money. And obviously your response would just be that like if you check to them, they just went all in every time you check to them. You would just check the top, you would just check 100% of the time. That'd be the GTO play. And then you would just call with your good hands. So it's like you wouldn't have like you wouldn't like I feel like people have this idea that's like GTO just means you have to play one exact way. But
Yeah.
it's like it's very the entire basis is that you're just adjusting to what other people are doing always.
Right.
They're not like I don't view them as like this. You'll see this stuff. It'll be like fuck GTO, like GTO versus exploitative or whatever. But like I don't view them as different things. Like they're so closely associated.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like there's a lot of things that go on. I'm just like what like people's narrative are going to be skewed towards their experiences and their fields when it's like
Yeah,
if you take a bunch of people who are pros and put them in the same field for like x time they're probably going to say very similar things And I think I was mentioning this in the Blake podcast, like, or no, the Sean Snyder podcast. Like, if you put me in a different location, a different month, and a different year, I'm gonna play
Yeah.
differently. It's just
So there was a player, like just as an example, like a different player. There's a guy who I played against who he calls the flop with any hand, basically. Calls the turn with almost any hand, and then refuses to
boom.
call the river with less than top pair.
Okay.
Like he's really tight on the river.
Okay.
So like I literally just close my eyes and bet all 3 streets every time I'm against this guy. Like, dude, the bluffs I run on this guy are just completely outrageous. But like he just folds every time. So I just close my eyes and do it every time. But like I would never play that way against anyone else. So like
Sure.
but like when he does call me down, like and I show my hand, if someone's sitting at the table, they'll be like,
They're just like,
dude, how out of line is Chris? Like,
you're right.
it's like you're saying, it's like, yeah, your strategy should be changing completely based off like who you're playing against. It's not some static thing.
When it's yeah. Maybe we shouldn't keep commenting on this. It's
No.
throwing ourselves under the bus. So how do you view bracelets? Do you ever want like a bracelet for ego?
It'd be cool to win one. Like I'm not gonna be like the too cool for school guy. Like I would love to win a bracelet. Like it'd be awesome. I think winning it online would be less cool than winning it live. Like I think the whole fun of being at the final table on the feature table, all that, like having the fans, like having your friends cheer for you, like all that would be awesome. It'd be less fun online. But like I wouldn't take stock in it as a measure of how good I am or like being successful. Like I would just be like, that was cool. I got lucky in this one thing and it was really fun. Like that would be my take on it. Like I would feel like I've talked about this just as like a general thing of like what makes me like feel good in poker or something is like when I'm doing something that I know is like strategically good, that's like having a result that I think other people aren't doing. Or like if I was like beating, if I played someone like heads up and beat them for a bunch of money, I'd feel way more proud of that from like a poker skill wise than I would winning a bracelet. But like winning a bracelet would be awesome.
Sure.
I just don't think it's not the metric I would use to like, oh, did I have a successful creel?
It's
Anything to do with tournaments, I would never use as that metric.
Right, and okay, I wasn't even talking about current. I was talking about like a poker career in general. But like, I agree with you. Like to feel good within yourself, you're like, oh, I'm doing something that I don't think anybody else knows, and it's working. And you just like slide your cards, and like with that.
Oh, I mean, I think one of the best feelings in the entire world, and people are gonna laugh at this, is making a fold to someone when I have a really good hand that they should win a lot of money, and I'm fairly confident in the fold. Like it feels so good. Like it's like I lost the pot, but like I won. Like that's how I feel every time. I'm just like I won this pot. Like that was awesome. Like that's or like I guess the opposite is like if you have some bluff in some spot that like people don't find bluffs and you get it through, that feels good too. But like something like that is like the best feeling in poker to me. Like when I know that it wasn't like not just like people like I love hero calling or something. Like no, it's good. No, I'm saying like it feels good. Like you call, you win, you catch the bluff. Yeah. But like those certain times, like when I'm against someone good and like they bet the river, I'm like, I don't know. Like I have some hand I think should call sometimes. I call and I win. I don't like feel that great about it. Cause I'm not like it wasn't like strategically I did anything. I just got lucky that they were bluffing that time.
Right.
But like when I find like the big fold, it's like, no, like strategically I did something that like is exploiting you. Like I found an edge.
I mean, that was my king's hand with Alex Torelli. Like, dude, he could have had winner. I have no idea, but I was inducing the bluff. Plus, there's no way I'm folding kings in that spot. But was it? Oh, what the best feeling for me is when you check raise the field and you make the winning hand fold, and then you catch the other guys with a draw. That actually happened.
That's a cool one. That's a tough one to do.
It happened a month ago when the bike reopened. There's a 2p2 reg that I check raise the field, and I have a lot of history. Sean knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you know how it is, like sometimes you just don't want to, you never want that person to know what you did too.
Oh yeah.
So I check raised the field. He folded winner. I caught the 2 draws, but of course the river. And I had the ace of clubs and the other guy the king of clubs. Of course, club didn't come on the river, and the field 6-outed me. So of course I'm like texting my buddies. I'm like, but still felt good to make the winning hand flop on the turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because like obviously there's a ton of luck, and most of the time you're dealing with small samples. But I think one of the best feelings in poker is if you've been playing for something for a long time and everyone's telling you how good you are, but you're doing things that are very exploitative to them.
Yeah.
So it's like I think if you're just always folding to someone because you know they're not bluffing, so every time you call them, they lose. And they was like, man, I can never beat you. You run so good against me. It's like, no, dude, like that's not what's happening. Like, it's like the best compliment. If you're told like you're super lucky in some
Yeah.
spot, like you're probably doing something well. And if you're just constantly like, man, like I'm just running so bad against that guy always. That guy's probably doing something against you.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna like definitely been in certain circumstances, but sometimes you can. I mean, it sounds like when you're shot taking and you're over your head in fields. It's less obvious sometimes, but then a lot of times in retrospect, when I'm playing somebody heads up or whatever. Well, I mean, actually, heads up is different because like I know when somebody's better than me, and then I've quit like many people. I'm just like on the keyboard. I'm like, dude, you're just better than me. I'm out. Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
feel like, yeah, heads up is tough sometimes though, because like I think heads up, it's very easy to convince yourself you're getting unlucky or lucky or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like if you lose some big pot with queens against aces or something, heads up, you'll be like, and like you lost a bunch of money playing. You're not, like you don't really know. You're just kind of like, was I getting beat? Like I don't know. Like I lost this one big pot.
Yeah,
It's. I feel like sometimes heads up's the one the toughest to. It depends. Like
evaluate.
if the skill gap's really big, it's easy to tell. But
Right.
if the skill gap's like close-ish, it can be hard to tell because like you don't see showdown that often.
Yeah, I guess when I mean I played Doug. I knew Doug Polk. I knew I was an underdog, but
Yeah,
like
it seems like that one's probably an easy one.
yeah, I know. It's more like I know I'm an underdog. They've obviously him and his crew obviously studied stuff way beyond me,
Yeah,
and I just kind of want to see. And like even after an hour playing with them, I'm like, oh, my mind was expanding, but whatever.
Doug's like my. I think Doug's like my poker hero. Like I think Doug is like he's just like the man in my like. When you talk about like doing the poker dream or whatever, like he did it. Like he beat the game. Like there was no level left for him to beat. Right. Like he literally started from like 5 cent, 10 cent, went
Mhm.
all the way up to infinite. Played the best player in the world in Sauce,
And he
beat
just
Sauce. Like and then he just quit when he was on top. Like no one ever beat him. Like he beat the game and then just left. It's the like it's literally the poker dream.
and then he took over poker YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've told me this in confidence. So do you what's your opinion on of who the best heads up player is? Because I think Sauce said he didn't agree. The sample is too small, or just like maybe not worth his time, or who knows? I don't know. Opinion piece from you.
I mean, I think considered the best guy right now is Linus. Love is considered like the top guy. I think I think Sauce is an absolute genius.
I don't think anybody disputes that.
Yeah, and then like I mean, there's the guy. It's just weird because like so much of the biggest, highest stakes action is like this private or it's like short deck now. A bunch of people play short deck for like huge amounts of money, and like I have no clue. But like, yeah, online Linus Love is definitely considered to be the top dog, and I know Sauce is still like one of the top guys. In the tournaments, I think like those like Timothy Adams and Michael Adamo. Or if you look at like the Poker Shales listings where they have the prices, it'll always be
Right.
Adamo and yeah, they'll be like 1.15 and all the biggest stuff.
What about Hellmuth and Negroni? I'm just kidding.
I mean, honestly, I give them more credit than I think a lot of guys
I
do.
do.
Like
I do too. Yeah.
one, everything I've ever seen from Negroni is reasonable. Like seriously, like every time he's played recently and I've seen something, it's never like it never seems that bad. And like Hellmuth, I mean, okay, I don't believe in live tells completely, but like I think there's something like his whole act and everything. I think when he sits live, like people like try to bluff him because like they want to bluff Phil Hellmuth or like they try to like hero call him because they want to tilt him or like whatever. And like
there's
I
something
think
to it.
I think he generates some EV for sure. I mean, I think he's obviously, despite what he would say, he's obviously probably one of the luckiest poker players ever. You just can't win the most bracelets and not be that case. But like Ivy's fairly lucky too, and Ivy's obviously great. It doesn't
Sure.
like being lucky doesn't mean you weren't good.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said this too. Like Hellmuth, like we know this. You got to be insanely lucky in tournaments. You need to be dealt like
Yeah,
a lot of winning
course.
hands.
Of course.
What Hellmuth does in these large NTTs is that sometimes he'll agitate his opponent in whatever way, and then they'll like punt him and like.
You know the biggest myth in poker is that Phil Hellmuth's a net. It's the absolute biggest myth. Have you ever played a tournament with him? He's the craziest lag you've ever played with. It's
I've
unbelievable.
only played cash games with him.
Yeah. Dude, so I haven't played cash with him, but I've been on his tournament, his table once. He was 3-betting like king 7 off and stuff. Like he goes completely ham, but he just sells that he's like a nit, and he just berates you if you do anything remotely loose. And I swear to God, it works, dude, because people don't want to get berated, so they play too tight against him.
I mean, this is like, I think in one of Barry Greenstein's books, where they say Hellmuth is good against, normal people, but not good against pros, because pros, they're not affected by his B rate. We're like, whatever, dude. Like,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, of course. And like, I think despite what he says, like, he would be someone he'd say like, oh, I'm the best player on the world. Like he would say that publicly. I think you can kind of tell by his game selection he like actually knows what he's good at and isn't.
Yeah.
Because like you don't see like Phil Hellmuth like trying to battle Doug Polk or something. Like he'll act as if he would, but like he's not trying to. He's just someone who's he's good at what he does, which is playing live MTTs in big fields against like the player pool, and he finds a good way to play against them. It's like we're saying, like, is his strategy going to be great against like in the toughest fields? No, but like he's not trying to do that, and he knows he's not trying to do that.
And he's trying to build a brand too. Yeah. Like, but the thing is, like, what he says is kind of echoing like everybody's playing different games, like, or different games in life. Like, say me, you, Phil Hellmuth, whatever. Yeah. Like, we're all playing poker, but we're not doing the same thing.
Oh, I think, like even within a game where like technically your end goal is EV. So like, let's say you're playing poker, like the goal is to make every decision the max EV decision. Like theoretically, even in game, I don't think that's completely true. Like, I think people have a ton of different incentives, and they might be subconscious or conscious, but they lead to decisions that are different. Like some people, I think, the embarrassment of getting bluffed is worth avoiding to make a minus EV call or something. Or like other people, like I think shot taking is a clear one because I've done this. I'm sure everyone who's ever played poker's done this. You have some spot that you could run some bluff, or you could go for some thin value bet or whatever, and it would probably make a little bit of money. But you're in this massive game, and your incentive is to just be in the game for longer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just trying to get like the big gift. So like you're avoiding like you'll avoid some giant small spot.
This is,
and I think that paying attention to that stuff and knowing what's going on, and like just in life too, like people's decisions, everyone's so like like economics says like everyone's rational party, and like I agree with that, but the problem is you don't always know everyone's incentives.
And everyone's what?
Everyone's incentives. So like I think everyone acts rationally to what they want to accomplish, but you just have to figure out what they want.
Right. Everybody's playing different games. Like everyone has does different goals. So that's something where on the outside, any game is like, okay, clearly the goal is to win. But in poker, it's like some things can be fluid, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, a really common one is like I just think just some example, like whatever. Let's say you opened 200 big blinds in the cutoff, the button 3-bet you, and you have ace king, right? Like you have ace king off. So like you could 4-bet or call. They probably 4-betting might make a little more. Calling might, depends on like what the button's doing. But like if your incentive is like, hey, like I don't want to play this super swingy spot. This game's really big for me. I'm gonna flat. Like it's like that would lean you towards flatting. It doesn't really matter like what the strategy is, let's say.
Yeah. No, I do that, on by the bike, and like one of the there's certain spots too where I mean you play live, you know how it is too. Sometimes like when you're tanking or you do certain actions, it eliminates some of the actions that you could take into it because you've already given away certain
Yeah.
information.
So that's one thing I actually um I'm full of playing fast. Like should play fast, but I do think people give a little bit too hold of time to people who try to like take their time a little bit. Like if someone takes like every time it's checked to them, they take like 5 to 10 seconds before they act. I think it's like people will like be like, oh, that guy's just intentionally slowing the game down. But it's like if you don't do that, like you actually do give stuff off. Like, I mean, like you like what
Yeah.
you just said, like I've definitely been in some spot where I've tanked for a long time and shown that like I'm debating between call or fold. And then as I'm tanking, I realize, wow, I should be bluffing this hand, but I
Yeah.
can't now. I've like literally eliminated the option of bluffing. Like I can't do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
I catch myself like, on the
yeah.
outside doing that, but definitely it's happened even on live with the bike too, which goes to studying. Like if you know like what your basic lines are, then and it's prepared, then you just use the energy and
Yeah, it
time to
helps.
But
No, I mean, yeah, that's like one of those things with live poker, right? Like online, you can be like, dang it, I didn't want him to bet. What am I going to do? And then you can decide to bluff.
that
But
is
like, you
that
can't
is
do that
very true. Yeah.
live.
And the thing is, like, timing tells were such a thing, like, 15 years ago, and then people caught on to those things, and now you just never know. Now you do kind of know, especially when it's quick bet.
Those definitely some spots that come up and people definitely have timing tells still. I just think it's some spot where if they have a if they act really quickly, like if you bet and they just instantly act and they don't do that every time, well, they had some hand that they thought the decision was clear. It wasn't like a hand that they had to decide what they were doing.
Right.
And like, yeah, they could have decided before you bet, but like most likely that was unlikely, you
Yeah.
know? So like I think a common one is if you three bet someone and they call the second you three, like it just gets back on them and they just instantly call. Well, they had a hand they didn't even consider full betting with.
I used to reverse tell like that. Like I would just snap like
Sure.
4 bet
It's
hands.
pretty tough to do like if you're like 200 big blinds deep and like no
Okay.
limit though, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
tough. Like flatting aces is such a bad play that you wouldn't do it anyways.
Right.
So it's
Right.
like,
I was talking
yeah,
100 bigs. Yeah.
yeah, no, for sure. But like, and obviously you can try to play with that stuff. I'm just saying, like, that's just some spot where if someone acts instantly, it's like, well, they didn't have a decision between the two options. They thought
Yeah.
it was very clear that they were calling, which means they now any hand that would sometimes bluff is no longer in the range,
Yeah.
which is
It's
like, relevant.
no. I mean, we're throwing a lot of crap under the bus. It's just
No,
like
I mean, this is
I
all
have.
like this is like the level of strategy I'm like cool talking to like it's nothing like specific. It's not being like, oh, like here's how you play this hand, but it's like general things. That's like the way that poker's just adaptable and like but it's kind of why playing live's fun is
I have
each
a
situation's a little unique.
right. There's a lot of like I say this on broadcast, like, live with the bike's only the first X hours, but everybody plays different, like hour 1, hour 5, hour 10, hour 24. Oops,
Oh
maybe you
yeah.
shouldn't be
I
playing
mean,
24 hours.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, I've definitely been in spots against the same player in almost identical hands. And for whatever reason, in one spot, I think they're almost never bluffing. And the other spot, I think they almost never have it. And it'll just be because like something's different in the situation. That's like not related to like the actual poker hand. Well, it is kind of, but it's like related to what's happened for the last 3.5 hours.
Right. It's like you built history for that day because like anybody any given day can play like, leopard can't change its spots, but they can have different like moods or mindsets or interpret things in a different way.
Yeah, like um and like you have to pay attention. Like some people, if they're really stuck, they don't want to run a big bluff because they don't want to be stuck even more.
Yeah.
Some people are the opposite. Some people will just be like, well, I'm so stuck, I'm just gonna fucking go for it
Mm,
because maybe I win the pot and I'll be less stuck. Oh, it doesn't matter. But like
yeah.
just paying attention to who you're playing against
Oh
and
yeah,
how they
that's
react to stuff like that.
yeah, that's absolutely huge. Like, yeah, I mean, and just knowing people's there's like reputation and what's like actually going on. It's like when I hear
Oh yeah.
when I hear like a group of people, whether it's regs or super pros or normal people, and they talk about a certain person, and I have like insight on the other person, I just like just shut the hell up because I'm just like I don't want to throw them under the bus, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, for sure. Like, I've heard things about like, yeah, like you said, like perception and what's going on can be so different, and I think people's false impression like matters a ton.
Yeah,
So like, so many people will be like, if they saw something one way or another in the first session they played against someone, that's their opinion of the
they're
guy forever.
right. Yeah,
So like, and that's just like human. Like you do that with everything, right? Like if you like someone the first time you meet them or you
yeah.
dislike them, it's tough to come over that. So like, I think if you could see someone really nitty run a big bluff, just randomly they ran a big bluff, and you happen to be playing with them the first time, and you would just be convinced for months that this guy's willing to go for it, and you would just keep running into it until you
And you're
finally
like,
change the
yeah,
media. And or like the other one is like if someone made one really loose call against you, you'll be like, this guy's a huge station. But it's like, hey, he just decided to call that one time. Maybe he's not.
yeah. And also
They make
just like
big
first
assumptions.
first impressions too. Like if you've heard of some player and then you play them for the first time, you have like all these like notions and plus like what you've heard about them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I feel like it's I feel like everyone who's like been playing poker for a little while has had like the experience of like some newer, younger pro coming in and being like and clearly playing some hand against you. Like you guys like have some like battle and dynamic because like you're both pros and like going sick, and you're like, and like you're just sitting there being like, dude, like I'm not trying to do anything. Like I'm just playing my calls. Like
Yeah.
I don't know why you're five betting me with king full suited. Like, yeah, I had ace king. I don't know. Like, but like they'll like convince in their head that you guys have this like aggro dynamic because they all pro and like you guys are battling, and you're like, dude, like I'm not at all.
I had
And
a
I've also been on the other side of that. I've definitely thought that like someone and I are going back and forth, and that guy's probably just like, what the hell is this kid doing?
yeah, it's true. There's a hand I'm gonna throw myself under the bus. It was 1 or 200 stud with John Hannigan. So whatever, John Hannigan's been around way longer than me.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a hand where he had a door card jack and he raised, and I had a queen door and there's 3-bet representing queens, and my whole cards were 7 deuce. But I kept going. I mean, he must have had a live read on me or something because he called me down with one pair of jacks. But
he knew, man.
I made sevens and twos,
really
two
funny.
pairs. I was like two pair, and I flipped because I paired my sevens and my twos, and I was embarrassed. And then I was like, dude, you like I feel so bad. And then he was just like, he didn't even bat an eye, and he was just like, nice hand. And I was like, I called myself out on like the podcast. I'm like, oh man, he just knew.
This just reminded me. So when I was playing 1-2, there was I like got the called room to play like a 2-5 game one Friday or something, which was like huge stakes. It was like $1,000 buy-in. So this was like a really big game for me at the time. And I had some hand where like I bet 3 streets on Queen 10-8 with King Jack. And the guy just called me down all 3 streets. I shoved the river and he just snap called. And I was like, you got it. And I showed my hand, and he had 9-7 and misread the board. So it was Queen 10-8, and he thought he had a straight, but he had 9 high. So I like win this vaudeville. I was just like so sheepish. I was like, yeah. Like I was like, I mean, I'm gonna take the money, but like,
it happens. It's like, yeah. That's why like a lot of times now I just flip over my cards. I texted.
Always no. If like you're a showdown, especially if you got called, just always show your hand. Mucking your hand when you get caught bluffing is the dumbest thing. Like it makes no sense. What you don't want to see what they had, or like, yeah, it's so silly to me when people do that. It's such an ego thing.
Yeah, and like somebody. Oh man, I know. I don't want to get this story wrong. I think it was Mark Newhouse. Like, one guy exploited him because he knew that if Mark got caught bluffing in one of these spots, he would just turbo muck his hand, which he did. They actually had it chopped.
I saw someone check call with 3 high on the river one time, and someone mucked, and he showed 3 high because he knew the guy would muck, which was the most baller thing I've ever seen. But yeah, it's like that could happen to you if you actually auto muck every time.
Yeah,
which is pretty insane.
And then ever since that, Mark Newhouse always showed. Ever since then, yeah. But it's like, yeah. So it's exactly, and I've said this stuff on Live Bike. Like one time, Garrett announced his hand, and Lynn just turbo mucked her hand, and she had decent showdown value. And I was like, dude, it's Garrett, so he's not going to angle you, but don't do that. Like you just never know when it's going to come up.
There was something. I think Bolt Hansen had some tweet or something, and someone responded to it. I just saw the response, and it was like, someone was like, yeah, I said I had aces, and the guy just auto mucked his kings, and then I mucked my hand. It was like this guy bragging about like doing this big angle. And like
shoot,
Bolt was like, what? Like, why are you bragging?
Yeah.
But it was like, but yeah, I mean, you obviously like if you reach showdown, you should before you muck your hand, you should make sure you see they'll showdown. And if it's your turn to show, just show your hand. One of my least favorite things is, this is just like a small pet peeve, but like you check until the river, and it's like some pro. So he goes check, and the pro's out of position, and it's like with you, like another pro. And he'll be like, queen high. And you're like, okay, show your hand, man. And he's like, no, queen high, man. Like, come on, show you. Like, they want to see your cards, but they don't want to show theirs. And they'll try and do this like angle where they announce their hand. It's like, dude, like it just wastes time. Just show your hand. It doesn't happen. If everyone thinks you suck, who cares? Get over it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, it's again totally true. And this actually happened. The bike was an argument where Poker Sasha got in a hand with somebody, and this guy made this big fuss. I got called over for some reason, even though like I have no influence on him. And then they're just like, what should he do? I'm like, as if I'm some like arbiter when I'm just another player or person. And I'm like, out of position, you show first. And then he's like, I announced my hand, she should show first. And then Sasha's like, see? I'm like, these are just the rules. Like, it's like, if you don't want to show your hand, just muck it. You can forfeit the pot if you don't want to show your hand.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've had a few times, like, for whatever reason, I'm just, like, on the river, and someone, like, I bluff, and someone calls me, and I'm just like, you got it, man, and they show the hand, and I just muck, right? Like, and, like, yeah, but, like, it's a little, like, technically that is an angle, because I'm supposed to have showed my hand or whatever. But, like, there's an understandable, like, if you really don't want to show, just muck your hand.
Yeah.
But, like, do this thing where, like, you're going to make them show, but, like, not show your own hand, It's very annoying.
Yeah, it's very touchy points too, and like,
those live poker has so many things where like people just get randomly angry about something so dumb. Like I've had, I'm sure you've had this. You ask someone if you can see the stack, and they get angry at you.
That's happened too, and also I have asked to see a stack, and I couldn't see the full stack, which is whatever. It's my fault. Like I should ask the dealer to count the stack.
The worst angle I ever had happened to me. Someone just held a bunch of $100 chips in their hand, and I went all in, and then they dropped the hundreds and called. So I went all in for like $500 more than I thought I did in a 2-5 game.
That's a lot, man. I mean,
no, I mean it sucked. But like, yeah, he was like, I mean, he like said he was just like playing with them, but like they were coupled. Like he knew what he was doing. He obviously had the nuts, and it was like he flopped the nuts against, and like I should have been paying attention. Like once again, like I should have known, but like he flopped the nuts. I had some overpay. I bet, and he raised, and I looked over, and he had like 100 behind, but he actually had 500 behind.
I've done something similar. The guy didn't do it on purpose, so to say, but he also wasn't forthcoming about how many chips he had. And in the end, it's my fault. We have to protect ourselves. But it definitely, like, there is some.
No, I mean, it's that's actually that's a whole other thing with live poker. Is so many of the times you don't even know, like online, you know exactly the amount you're playing for.
Yeah,
I've had so many hands live. I'm like, I think that's like that's simple. Like it might be bigger, it might be less. Especially like if people do like wheeled stacks, like So like Andy always couples everyone, so it's not a big deal. But
Yeah.
like if someone has a stack built like Andy's and you couple him,
Yeah.
you have no clue. Like you're literally just like kind of guessing. You're like,
That's definitely true. Yeah, for the last thing for the online thing, like I recorded. I'm not sure if this video is in the live.com archives yet, but I have one where I clearly use a timing tell, and I'm like, because he quick bet, and I'm like this no, and I just like ripped it, and then he folded, or it could have been like he snap calls, and I'm like whoops, but I literally announced this is a timing tell, and rip it, and then he just like snap folds. But it's not like this is the thing that like people misinterpret about the live reads things is like, well, I'm not the best person with live reads or online tells, but they do exist, and you could spot some of them. It doesn't mean you could always spot everything. It's
well,
just
and
like,
I think like yeah, so like those are the dumb ones that exist. That's just like, well, what are you doing? Which is like the guy fake reaches for chips in a spot he's never gonna bet and then checks, and you're just like, okay, like you really don't want me to bet. Like obviously, like it'll just be something like the ace hits on the turn and they check call the flop and they like pretend to reach for chips and then check. And you're like, well, you would never bet this. Like, what are you doing? But no, like as a general thing, like I would say most of the time live tells are just a way to justify whatever bias people have. So like if someone wants to call, they'll be like, oh, I had a live read that he was weak. And if someone wants to fold, they'll be like, I had a live read, he was strong. Like most of the time it's just justifying your own bias. And like in times they do exist, they exist because the action's so illogical. So it's like I'm saying, like, it's like someone reaching for chips in a spot they would never bet. Like, why would they do that? Or like when I like you're saying like someone just instantly acting in a spot they would never instantly act normally.
yeah,
You're like, whoa, that's abnormal. Like,
right.
yeah, basically that's the biggest way I can describe a live tell. It's not like anything specific. It's not like, oh, he twitched his eye, but it's like if someone does something that's very abnormal based on the way they would normally
There's definitely some stuff like the KGB scene in Rounders gets a bad rap, and yeah, that exact thing is definitely bad rap. But you could definitely catch any given, and I've caught myself doing this any
behave.
given session. Yeah,
I'm sure you've played against the guy who, one way or the other, he either talks when he has it and he's quiet when he's bluffing, or
yeah,
he's talking when he is bluffing, but he's quiet when he has it.
yeah,
Like you've definitely played against like those guys, and it's like, how is this real? Like they're like, this is like the Oreo cookie tell. Like it is. He goes like, this is
yeah.
incredible.
I think a lot of poker scenes. I don't know. Let's get your opinion on this. I don't think there is like fake as like because
So I think there's like clear top poker scene ever for movies, which is
okay,
the Sting.
go
I think the Sting is clearly the best poker scene ever.
Sting.
It's not even
Which one's
close.
that?
It's Paul Newman, Robert Redford. It's like
Okay,
1973 Best Picture or something.
tell the hand. I don't even know it.
Well, so it's a whole game. So it's a home game on a train, and they're trying to. So the Sting is a giant con. It's a con, like a what's it's a capo movie or whatever. They're trying to run a giant con on this guy.
Yeah.
So they go to his poker game and they know he cheats. Like that's the thing, and they figured out how he cheats. They know he gives himself quad nines is how he likes to cool people.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy goes in and he acts drunk, and like the Paul Newman's character goes in, acts drunk, and plays like the entire scene, and he's winning, like playing like as if he's like the drunk whale. And they end up heads up in his hand, and they show that he's getting cheated. They show the guy with quad nines, and they show that he has quad eights. But then when they show down the hand, his quad eights have changed to quad tens. So like
Okay.
he out cheated the cheater.
Okay.
And then when they go back to the room, the bad guy's like, I can't do anything because I know he cheated. But that means he knows I cheated. I can't say that he cheated me. So he just has to give him the money. It's such a good poke, and it's really well shot. It's very interesting. It's a fantastic movie. Probably one of my top 5.
I'll go check it out. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've been
so
trying to, especially with Joe Ingram, like saying what's your favorite poker scene.
yeah.
Where I've been trying to check out like every single poker
The
I
Sting,
found.
I think, because it's actually in a really good movie too. Like, and it's not like the Casino Royale scene is so cheesy. Like that one's
Which
awful.
one? There's so many bad ones. That's like the worst one, especially when Bond calls with a bluff catcher.
Yeah.
The quad jacks one, or some quads versus like.
Well, when it's like straight flush, quads, boat, like it's like 20 million good hands. Like that's not interesting. The reason the Sting one is good is because even though it's cheating, it's still them like strategizing how to beat each other. Which is way more interesting than just so many times when they do movie hands. It's just he has 2 good hands.
the blind one, the Casino Royale one, it's like it's possible, but what's so unlikely is on the turn, like a million strong hands. It's checked around. It's just like
that is pretty great. Yeah, it just checks. No, the whole James Bond hand's really bad. I'm trying to think of other poker hands now. There was the one where there was Cincinnati kid where he has the straight flush on like 5 called stud.
Yeah.
There's the Maverick. There's the Maverick where he calls all in with 1 out and he gets it, and that's why they know he's good at poker.
The Justin Timberlake one where he just like gunshots a set. Just like.
Have you seen? There's like Kevin Holt stand up that he makes fun of the James Bond scene, like going into the. So I'm not a huge Kevin Holt fan, but someone showed this to me. But the best part of it is he's just being completely obnoxious, like acting like it's a movie. And Don Cheadle's like, hurry up, just play faster. And then as he does, he's like, and he knocks his chips over, and the dealer goes, that's a bet. And all goes, I call.
That's good. That's good.
So good.
There's a scene in Rounders that's very low key, and I sometimes drop it on Twitter and commentary. So I think you can you might be able to hand read this.
Rounders has good poker scenes for sure.
I definitely agree. I think there was only a couple. I don't know. Like even the worst ones aren't even that bad. It's not like Casino Royale, which like most of the big hands are.
Yeah, no, the Casino Royale one's eye-rolling. The Oreo cookie tell is not eye-rolling at all. Like it's in the context of the movie, it's cool.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
And like it's only because like there's a lens on it that it gets such a hard time. Like other people have these things like a lot, but one of the hands was when Mike McDermott comes back at the end and beats KGB heads up the first time around. The flop is, I think 7-5-5, 2 clubs, turns a jack, and then the river is like the deuces hearts or something, and then Mike McDermott says, "I'm gonna tap you, Teddy," and then ships it, and then Teddy KGB calls, and Mike McDermott flips over his hand. He says, "Jack's up." He has Jack 10 of clubs.
Yeah.
And then KGB says, "You got lucky there catching that jack on the turn." So can you hand read what KGB has?
Well, he just has 10s, I guess.
I literally said that. See, yeah. I'm not. I'm not, because you would only say that. Yeah, go ahead.
In real life, we're thinking the same thing. In real life, most of the time when someone says that, they would either have like 10-7 or 10s. They would have some payout that had a 10.
That's literally. It's literally what I said. You could hand read based off of the speech play, which is true.
Or if I said that in real life, it's because I had like Jack 9 suited with the backdoor flush draw, and I'm like, God damn it! Yeah. I'm like, you don't even understand. I literally had like the nuts.
Right. But these are like the subtle things, like it's just like, and the thing is, like, the other level too you can interpret is like, if a club came, maybe KGB check folds. Just like that exact line has so much subtext. Like if you've been playing for a long time,
they have a lot of things. Like I think when he like there was like the scene where him and Willem get in like the fight because he folded with some hand he could have bluffed.
The rolled up king.
Yeah, and he's like, you have to bluff. Like you knew he would have folded, and the guy was like, no, like whatever. I think like that stuff's like, yeah, like that's an actual like good poker scene. That's like a real decision that does. Like I've definitely been in that spot before where I'm like, hey, like I really think he's gonna fold, but like I can't just go for it every time. Like I'm gotta give up sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of relentless people, and I don't want to throw any name pros under the bus that just like, will not give up until like it's clearly just like not working anymore.
Hey, I respect it. I
do too.
Any of those guys who just don't care and will just keep going for it, like who like like it's so funny to me. I've seen that before, like the guy who's just been hero called like 5 hands in a row, and he's on the 6th hand, and he's just going for it again. And I'm just like, you're my hero. Like, how do you just keep going for it? That reminded me. So I used to play so loose, like a queen 2 suited 3-bet loose. So I like set up some 5-10 game at Oceans, and it was like 5-10, 3K cap, but we all started drinking. Like, we got like very drunk. Like, this game got so big. Like, we had like straddles going, like it was like 5-10, 20, 40, 80. You know, like we're just like, it was just a joke. But I ran like 2 bluffs. I got called by ace high twice and lost. And this guy who I've never played with, I never saw him again, looks at me and goes, where have you been my entire life? And he's not joking. He's just like dead serious. He's like, this is the best spot ever. The next hand, I just throw out a 160 straddle, and I pick up aces against the guy's ace king.
Oh my god. That's poker,
and he just goes home.
Yeah.
Never saw him again.
Oh man. So much time at Oceans. So I have another joke, I guess trivia question. So, you know, the very first time when the first time KGB and Mike McDermott play heads up at the very end, KGB just goes, it's like they're playing 25-50 and KGB goes 2,000 straight. Oh no, Mike McDermott goes 2,000 straight.
Oh, well, yeah, Doug does that entire, Doug's hand history of the Roundels hands are so funny. Because he does, it shows the positions change. Like, it's like the button opens, but then the button acts false. He bets like 20x the ball.
Yeah, he bets 20x. And then he goes over the top for like 5K, and it's Mike McDermott goes all in for 10K. So he's getting 3-1. So what premium hand, like there are premium hands that are correct fold. Like if he has queens, he doesn't have odds.
On the ace 9 cool or whatever?
No. The first heads
the
up
one
match,
where he shoves kings.
Yeah, when he shoves kings.
Yeah.
Like,
And he's like, he's repping aces. Yeah. No, for sure.
But if KGB has queens, he made the sickest fold of all time because he doesn't have odds. Like ace king, he's got odds.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
So yeah, these are like subtle things that you can actually jokingly justify. There is like way above the rim play.
No, they did a good job. I mean, I listened to Bill Simmons has the Rewatchables podcast, and they did Roundels on there. So it's like a hour and a half or 2 hour long podcast about Roundels. And it's done, the two guys that are like on the podcast, like they both like have played live poker before. Like you can tell that they kind of get it. And like they talk about that when they made the movie, they did a bunch of research into trying to make it as realistic as possible. And like, I think one thing that's like annoying about the movie is they kind of make it like every pro is a cheater. Like they make it very clear that like the Taj Mahal game is like the all cheating game. Like when they're like, oh, like we're just here waiting for the suckles and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like that's the one bad part. But in general, they do a pretty good job of capturing like the kind of slimy feel of live poker, but like there's also like there's like a slimy glamour. It's like a weird way to explain. It's like a whole world of its own.
Oh yeah, and it's like evolved because like that's why when you know you're more in the mix, like I'll ask you questions. I'm like, what's it like now? Because looking from the outside, I'm like, I don't want to participate this in it at all. I don't like this at all.
One thing now is I feel like it's so funny. Like the amount of pros I know who do these, they have two sides. So they have this side that they try to be like, if they're in public, they'll be like, I'm the worst player ever. I'm so loose. Like, guys, give me action. But then they'll talk to me in private and they'll be like, well, I ran some sim and I had a script on this. Like, but like they don't even like what they're saying doesn't even make sense, but they're just trying so hard to seem super smart. Like when they're talking to me, like they'll just say something. I'm like, dude, like I don't know, like whatever. But then like go in public and be like, I'm the worst.
Yeah, I mean,
it's so obnoxious.
Like, it's tough because it's like, you know, in most other industries, everybody has like a career and like a normal life, and you have to like kind of figure that out. In poker, it's just like when you're physically there and you're seen all the time, and just like, you know, who's playing what. It's like a lot of things are more transparent than others. And in that aspect, I'm just like,
I will say though, poker's so deceiving. Like I think everyone thinks that everyone's so rich. Like if you like walk in the poker room and you had like someone write down what they estimate everyone's net worth is, like each
That's
person on the table,
interesting.
I
Right.
think you would end up like your average net worth would be like 5x too high. Like I feel like so much of like poker is this like facade of being
Yeah.
like, oh, like look how sick and rich and gambly we are, while everyone's actually like, yeah, they need to win these pots.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. But that's actually good. Like, I'm gonna bring that one in a future commentary or podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, like for sure, because I think people probably watch like when I'm playing like on the bike or something, like people probably watch that and are just like, wow, like he must just literally have infinite money, and like no, like those pots mean a lot to me. Like it matters. It's not
Oh
like
yeah,
it just doesn't matter.
yeah. No, it's the yeah. Results do matter. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's a funny tweet I saw about that. It was like, Force got into poker, results matter. It's like 5 years of my poker career, nah, process matters. 10 years into my poker career, nah, results matter.
yeah, it's that's why I'm doing what I am. But Matt Centrowitz, he's a Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
Want to comment on that relationship? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, Matt was, so he was 3 years older than me when I got to college. So he had just won the bronze at the World Championship his junior year of college. So he won NCAA's, so he was like the big guy on campus when I got there. He went pro during like the fall. So my first quarter at Oregon, he went pro. So I used to play like Halo with him and stuff back then, but like outside like sometimes playing video games, wasn't super close with him as a friend at that point. Yeah, on my recruiting trip, him and I were on the same Halo team in a tournament and we won, so that was cool.
Sick.
But yeah, then my junior year, he came back to Oregon. Like he was assistant coach, but more so he was just finishing up trying to get his degree because he left to go pro before he graduated. And then when he was back there, I was playing some poker at Full House, which was like the $1, $2 game. And him and I would just go play poker and like hung out, and then we just became friends from that point on. Yeah, and I've kind of always he's one of the people I've kept in touch with. And when he won the gold, it was one of the coolest things ever because
Sure.
I mean, he was a 20 or 25 to 1 dog going into the race.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So like he had won indoor world championships that year, and he had gotten a silver and a bronze at the last 2 world championships. But the guy who was the favorite was this guy Asbel Kiprop, who hadn't lost a race in like 2 years. No, I mean I think that was one of the absolute coolest, like in terms of like sporting events watching, that was the coolest sporting event I've ever gotten to watch.
It was
so cool
buddy.
seeing my own friend win the gold.
Yeah. No, I just like I say that to like a lot of my friends when even if they don't win, I'm like just or whatever they're competing or trying to perform in, like even their ascension to wherever they end up. I know they're very sad that they don't make it to their, where they want to, but I'm like, rooting for them the entire way. So
it's so funny. Like track and field is the most brutal sport in terms of like you basically get one chance every 4 years that matters, right? Like
yeah,
like world championships and stuff and running fast do matter, but all that anyone actually cares about in terms of like your status is how you do on Olympic years. So like, when it hits, like when Central gets the gold, it's the most incredible thing ever. But like, I've had friends who like, I had 2 friends who they got 4th at the Olympic trials. So top 3 get to go to the Olympics. 4th place doesn't. They got 4th place by a 1/10 of a second. It's like you spend 4 years working on your entire dream, and you run a great race and you lose by a 1/10. It's like it's so brutal. So like and like the work ethic is so much. People work so much harder in like track and field than like people do at poker.
Oh,
like,
sure. Yeah, dude.
For sure. Like so I always like I feel like that was one thing I almost was like fortunate because I was around this group of people that was like so incredibly hardworking, and the heartbreak that comes from running when something doesn't go well is so much worse than what comes from poker. Like I promise that like the worst downswing I've ever been on is not as brutal as like training for a race for 2 years or whatever and having the race not go the way you wanted. It's because it's so much effort. You put so, and it happens. It's part of sport. Yeah.
That's honestly, I mentioned like when I cold turkey StarCraft, that I can't be involved in it anymore because it just hurts too much. Like I'm not the person I used to be. Whereas like poker, I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm okay, but like I could go do broadcast.
No,
I didn't have
I'm sure that's the case. Like when StarCraft, because if someone worked really hard and loses, the tournament that finally comes, like it sucks, man.
Oh yeah, no,
and like almost because there's luck in poker, even if you actually got outplayed, you can just be like, yeah, I got unlucky. Like the stuff that's like skill, like pure skill, like running or StarCraft or something. It's like when you lose, it was you.
Yeah.
Which is it's really tough when you have no excuses. Like you can't run away from that. You can't be like, oh no, like I should have won the race, but I ran bad. Like you ran bad.
In my
actually.
Twitter. Yeah, that's in my Twitter. I'm like, poker, you can blame variance, Hearthstone, variance, but in League of Legends, you can blame your teammates. StarCraft, you can't blame anybody. It's yourself.
No, and that's that was what attracted me about running and like was what made me interested in the sport. Was like it's a pure meritocracy, right?
Yeah.
So like there's no coaching decision. If you were the fastest guy on the team, you were gonna run a race, and no one could argue about it. And like it's so linear. Like the harder you walk, you get results from. But that goes both ways because it made when things didn't go well, it was all on you. My emotional swings running were way more than my emotional swings playing poker, without doubt.
I jumped back into Hearthstone in 2019, and like me, I'm like I have 2 companies and a job, and I'm trying to play the Hearthstone tournament.
Do you ever feel like your relationship with like, because I feel this way with running, like your relationship with like esports or something is almost like a ex-girlfriend that like you had a great relationship with, and like there's still something there, but there's also like this weird tension. Like my relationship with running is so like I like to have running still be part of my life, but like I can't it's like there's something that's like it'll always have this like weird thing where I'm like, well, I'm done with you now. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it hurts, especially for real-time games. So I've been #1 ranked in Command and Conquer, Warcraft 2, and StarCraft. And like when I retire StarCraft, I'm like, I'm too old for this. It's done. Like it came to a juncture where I either move to South Korea or I do the .com stuff or I live my own life. I don't know the answers to this day. I don't know the answers. But like once I sever that tie, it's just like I can't go back because that's your prime age too. So I played RNG games, poker obviously, Magic the Gathering, 2 Pro Tours, Hearthstone. Like I try to squeeze in, whatever time I can. And then in 2019, when I'm competing, I'm like Dan Zach was, sweating me, and like I was updating him. I'm like, dude, I'm too old for this. It's like if I was doing Hearthstone full time, I could have made obviously a better effort and a better run. It's just this like love-hate thing where like I had to try, and I don't have the time.
That's what I've gotten better at it as I've gone older because I really do want like running such an actual healthy thing for my life.
Oh yeah.
And like I want it to be some part, but it's so hard because it's like it's hard to not be 100% at this thing you used to be excellent at. Yeah. It's hard to just be mediocre at it and like accept that. It's very tough. Yeah. Like, and I feel like also like you always, like, for me, like when I'm doing it, I reflect. I'm like, man, I should have worked harder back in the day. Like I should have done more of it or whatever.
I gave it my all for esports, but that's one of the things for poker. Like when people take shots at me, whether it's in person or on like comment section, I just really don't care because I'm like I've never been like a GOAT. Like I've been
your identity with poker has always been something that it makes you money, but it hasn't been like being an excellent poker player hasn't been like your identity.
Yeah, like
which I think and I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong way about that, but I definitely think you can notice that with different pros. People who poker is their entire identity, and people who
Yeah.
poker is a job for, and then people in between now. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I take pride in trying to be good at the game. Like I think you should. Like when I'll hear, I don't want to call him out, but there's a certain podcaster who I've heard say that like you shouldn't take any pride in it, and I think that's dumb. Like it's something you've chosen to do, and like
Yeah.
you should
Yeah.
be proud, but like at the same time, it shouldn't be your sole identity. Which I think is,
agree.
I guess, running was my sole identity. Like I was Chris Brewer, the runner, right, for 8 years. So I think that's why, like, when I talk about running now, it's like it is weird for me to do now because it's like, well, it's still like I was the good runner, so not being good now is kind of like not that fun. Which I feel like, for you, it's like you are the best video, like you are the best strategy, real time
Probably in
gameplay
my
on the wall. So
generation. Yeah.
losing at it, it's just not fun at all, and you can't just be like okay with it.
No, yeah, and I talked about Colleen too, but like I learned to, accept it in a sense that like it was like a part of me, and like Jay Severson, who's one of my best friends, he's the co-founder of chess.com, like he just handled it so much better when we were younger, because when people would fire shots at us, he's like,
Yeah.
whatever, dude, I was there, you weren't, like, so
Yeah.
whatever the hell you say doesn't matter. Like I said, for poker, it's just like you fire shot somebody, it's like, whatever, dude. Like I've seen Garrett like 10, 15 years ago. He was GOAT then, he's GOAT now. It's like it's not a big deal, but just something where and it wasn't just competing. The first 2 years of StarCraft content, I was I helped jumpstart and pioneer esports, like at gamers.com and GX StarCraft. Yeah. So it was just more than just a being competitor.
Yeah.
So
it's being it's funny. It's just reflectively thinking back. It is funny, like so much when you're really in that stuff. It is your entire life,
yeah.
and that's one thing. I like poker's never reached the same point for me. Like I like poker a lot, and I spend it is the
yeah, we know.
no, and it's like it's the majority. I spend a majority of like my effort on it, and it probably is my number one priority in terms of like things I do. But it's not my entire life. While running was like my friends were all runners. My entire day was built around what I was going to do for running. And when you're talking about the esports, it's like the same thing. So when you move away from this, it's such a giant change. And like I do think all athletes, no matter not all athletes, anyone who is really specific and good in a field and excellent, when you move out of it, you go through some level of identity crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like Michael Jordan went through an identity crisis when he quit basketball.
baseball.
For sure.
Yeah. I keep telling this to Dan Zach, and like I intend to do in some capacity. I play Hearthstone just to get to legend when I can.
Yeah.
Every month, but in some capacity, I do want to go back and kind of be like, because one of the things that's not documented is all these kids that do well in esports when they're teenagers. What happens to them? And honestly, there's like a chip on my shoulder. Like I don't want to be a loser. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to accuse me of that except for Asian parents.
I just watched the King of Kong documentary like a week or two ago because it's randomly reminded me of that.
Which one was
Have you seen
that?
it?
I think I've
It's
heard
the guy. So it's about what's his name? Billy Mitchell. He has like the Donkey Kong record, and basically some other random guy beat his records, and Billy Mitchell. So my take on the documentary when I watched is that this Billy Mitchell guy is kind of a scumbag and is screwing the other dude over who's like just setting the records and happens to be better than him at the game.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's a funny documentary. It's all about these people who are really good at playing Donkey Kong.
I mean, even though in my prime, like I knew people were going to surpass me. It just like whatever. It's just the era. Plus, like I was in my early 20s, and I knew if somebody's like 16 or whatever, they just be better. But yeah, I kind of like I made my run, and it took me a really long time, but I made peace with it, and I have like other things going on. I'm an adult now. Just like I said, for like I see a juicy game. Part of it's too, like, if I'm doing the scheduling for Live with the Biker hosting, now it's like a conflict of interest if I, start playing with them when I'm getting paid anyway. So it's just like my life's so different now. But yeah, no, I mean, this is a great topic to catch on. And
dude, your priorities will change as things go on. But like, that sometimes I think if you're really invested in something, it will be tough whenever you do the initial change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, even like not playing high stakes, there, I mean, not gonna lie, that there was like a chip, but like a lot of people I talked to in the LA community that were, my peers, they're like, we're glad that you're the one there and not somebody else. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I'll take it and I'll run with it. And like one of the dangers, like you said, like we don't have our identity tied into poker, and that's so dangerous.
Yeah.
Like,
So it's really tough if and I'm not gonna say I don't have any identity tied to it. Like
me neither.
I definitely
Yeah.
have some. But for sure, like yeah, I know some people who that poker is entirely their identity, and the results are either end up being massive mood swings because you're so upset from losing and so happy from winning,
Yeah.
or the other one is if they treat poker as in like money's the scorecard. So it's like their identity is being that one. They just become so obsessed with every dollar that like they're never happy. Like there's no amount of wealth that's enough wealth.
Yeah.
So it's just like this repeating cycle of like they have to keep finding ways to make more and more money, and then they have to brag and tell everyone about how much money they make playing poker, and like they just become a really toxic person to be around.
Yeah.
It seems like those are like when people get too much identity tied to poker. I do think poker more than other endeavors, you have to like disassociate a little bit because there's just this giant luck factor.
And also there's the chasing peak factor where like you're always chasing your own,
Well, yeah, so you're always peak stuck, right? Like unless you literally won the last session, you're peak stuck. So like if you want to be people like find a way to be upset about that. Like it's incredible.
Yeah, no, I've done it too, not gonna lie.
Oh,
But
for sure. Oh, for sure. I've definitely done the stretch of winning for 6 months straight, losing some amount that's 1/5 the amount I've won in the last 6 months in the next month, and being like, dude, I'm just running so bad. It's so sick. But it's like if I had done that in the opposite fashion, it'd be the exact same amount of poker hands, exact same things. But if I'd done it in some different order, I would have never like thought about it.
right, it's crazy psychologically. So thanks for your time, but like
Yeah,
this is gonna
no
be
problem.
next Monday, and we have to prepare the Kitty and Andy Taiwan stream. This is gonna be July 17th, 2020.
This is gonna be a long one. I don't know if anyone's gonna get through this.
Oh, dude, I've had 3+ hour ones. Like they're
See
like
see if anyone comes at the strategy.
you know what's funny? Like this last parting thing. Obviously, my podcast with Sean Snyder have like a lot of gold in them, but they get like so few views. It's so hilarious. But whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
People just want to. People just. I feel like they like hearing like just like the gambling stories or like a little bit more fun. People don't want like the deep strategy.
Well, this is the thing about Live at the Bike is like we're selling the truth. Like, and the truth is hard to sell. So like some stuff like fake Instagram posts or clickbait hands are just going to sell better. So
okay. Yeah, I was randomly I sorted Live at the Bike by most viewed videos because I was curious, and it's literally just 5. It's like the first 5 videos are just ones where in the thumbnail you see someone's boobs. So I think I figured out what the audience wants.
Yeah, I mean it's a very just like poker. It's just like it's a kind of heartbreaking thing where you're just like, oh well, that's the real world.
I just think it's so funny. The hands have no relevance to anything outside of boobs. And then I think the 6th one's like the Andy the giant Andy pot was up there. It was the only one that like stood out from not having a woman.
Hey, come on, man. I'm just kidding. Well, we like, we do what the world wants. What can we do?
Yeah, you guys do a great job. I just thought it was funny when I sold it that. It's not even like you guys like sell that. It's just randomly happens to be.
Yeah, it just like, what obviously we want to give women in any male dominant industry, a chance to showcase herself. It's
of course.
But this was pretty awesome. I hope the audience appreciates your insight, and we'll definitely get you back in the future.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
All right, take it easy.
Later.